And you look at where we are right now, Devin, and obviously where we're going to start today is with the Eagles. And I think generally everyone feeling a lot better after these last 2 weeks. I mean, if the sky was falling after the 3 games that they lost in a row, really going back to the bye week. You don't play well against Green Bay. You don't play well against Detroit, even though you win these games. And I think rightfully so, everybody feeling a lot better. You get 2 good offensive performances. And I said on Sunday when I was on, my big takeaway from the game on Saturday is that this team has a legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl. And I don't know if I've necessarily felt that way all year long. The way that they played really after getting off to that 4-0 start, they had been a pretty average team, but they looked a lot better these last 2 weeks here. And when you look at where the Eagles are, I think you have a Super Bowl defense. You have a team that has a history of winning. They have experience. And you have an offense that's playing a lot better. But at least for me right now, it's hard to separate that from the fact that what you did was against 2 of the worst teams in football. It was against the Raiders, it was against the Commanders, and I think the Eagles are in good shape right now. But where I am going into this week, and a lot of the conversation already and the rest of the week will be, what do you do against the Bills this week? I need to see them play well against Buffalo. I need to see the Eagles go out and play well. I'm not thinking about sitting anybody this week. I'm going all out. I'm playing everybody in this game. I need to see the Eagles win this game. And if you want to get in, 215-592-9494, 215-592-9494, how are you approaching it this week if you're Nick Sirianni, if you're the Eagles? And do you still think there's something this team needs to prove? That's where I am right now. I still, as much as I am encouraged, I am very encouraged by what we saw the last couple weeks here, and especially on Saturday, I need to see them do it against Buffalo. I'm playing everybody. Where are you, Devin? How are you approaching it this week?
I mean, I understand, wanting to see them play well against Buffalo, and obviously I think we would all love to see them play well against Buffalo. I'm just so sick of us setting these tests week after week for this team as if this team hasn't accomplished anything, like as if they didn't put up the most amount of points in playoff history last year and crushed a dynasty in the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, as if they didn't just clinch the NFC East back-to-back for the first time in 21 years. I just feel like we at some point need to give credit where credit is due, and this team is doing amazing things, and we will look back at this era of Eagles football as, the good old days. At some point, it's really hard to win in this league. So I just think it's ridiculous, and I'm not necessarily just coming at you, TK. Like, we do it on this station. I see fans do it all the time. We hold this team to such a high standard that it's like, well, they played well, but now they need to go do this. Well, yeah, they won, but now they need to do this. Yes, they won the NFC East for the second year in a row, for the first team to do it in the NFC East for 21 years. But if they don't win in Buffalo, well, then I'm going to be concerned. Like, we're going into week 17. I think I don't want to say we've seen the Eagles for what they are, because Nick Sirianni tends to preach, playing your best football at the end of the year. We certainly saw them play their best football throughout the end of the year and postseason last year, and I think that will be the case again. I'm just saying, it's going to be snowy probably, rain, snow, mix expected in Buffalo. It's going to be cold. If you're going to risk anyone's health, especially players like Lane Johnson, like Jalen Carter, who reportedly have the potential to come back, I personally don't think it's worth it. You're already in the postseason. I'm not saying you can lose out the rest of the way, but it's not everything. Don't risk the health of your players just to prove that you can beat the Buffalo Bills.
Well, this is the way I look at it. If they're hurt, they're hurt. If they're too injured to play, they're too injured to play. Then, of course, I'm not playing Lane Johnson. I'm not playing Jalen Carter. But if they're good to go, they feel like they're healthy, the Eagles training staff thinks they're healthy, then I'm putting them out there and playing this game. And this is the thing. When we look at last year and we look at this year, and I think what you said is fair, but I also think it's fair to look at the way the teams played this year. I believe they're not necessarily the same team that they were last year. They hopefully can get back to that level, but it's not like they have played this season and been the dominant force every week that they were last year. They've looked good the last couple weeks, but we're coming off 5 weeks prior to that of really bad offensive football. And I think there are certainly encouraging things to look at. There are signs that they're moving in the right direction, but when you look at the level of competition, I mean, the Raiders might be the worst team in the NFL. They're certainly one of them. Washington, same thing. That defense is terrible. I would like to see them go into the playoffs by going into Buffalo, playing against a good team, defeating a good team. And it's not just, I think, for us as well. I think for the team. Like, I think it's important for them to go out there and play against a real playoff caliber team, get your confidence headed in the right direction, because when we look at resting guys, too, I mean, we're talking about potentially resting them for 2 weeks. Like, that's like 21, 22 days between playing a real game. I think you need to stay sharp. I think they need to go out and play this week.
I mean, so a lot of it will depend on the conditions, and you also have to look at the past health and past injury history of these guys. So, for example, Jalen Carter had procedures on both his shoulders, clearly had been bothering him. I'm hoping he can come back and, not that he wasn't dominant even with like basically playing with half a shoulder for most of the season, but hopefully he can come back and like really make a big impact on the D line. Now, Lane Johnson, different case, because his injury was in an area that can easily be affected by playing on a slippery surface if there's snow or ice or rain or what have you up in Buffalo. And that something like that concerns me, especially given how banged up the offensive line is. Now, when it comes to the Bills, I was having this argument with Mike Quake actually when we were at dinner before the Commanders game, because I feel like we tend to do this thing, and I don't think it's just a unique to Philadelphia thing. I think football analysts, whoever, fans see a quarterback and we just assume that the team is great because they have a great quarterback. Yes, Josh Allen is great. Guess what? Jalen Hurts is very similar. I haven't looked at the updated since after week 16, but going into week 16 had the same, if not better, QBR than Josh Allen. Josh Allen has thrown more interceptions. Like, we talk about Josh Allen like he's this Superman, and yes, he's super talented. Josh Allen has no wide receivers to throw to, and he's going up against one of the best, if not the best, secondaries in the league in the Eagles secondary. So, like, the matchups here, it's like I'm not going into this game thinking that the Buffalo Bills are this dominant team. The Buffalo Bills haven't made it to the Super Bowl. So I don't know why we talk about this team like they're like the, next Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs, and that beating them would be this massive accomplishment. What? I think that they're a talented team, but I'm not scared of them.
Well, I don't think it's that, but I think there's a difference between them and the Raiders and the Commanders. Like, the Raiders and the Commanders, you're talking about two of the bottom, 8 teams in football, 2 of the bottom quartile teams in football. Mm-hmm. The Bills, for whatever we think of them, I think they're pretty good. I think they've taken a little bit of a step back this year, probably not going to win their division. They're probably a top 10 team in the league, and I think it's a good measuring stick to see where this team is at. And I just don't think we're at the point yet where we can say this team has played well enough to where we can sit them for 2 weeks, we can go into the playoffs and feel like everything's fine. Yeah. I am encouraged by what we saw the last 2 games. It's probably the best I've felt about the team, as I said, since week 4 when they beat Tampa Bay and got to 4-0. But at the same time, I'm not fully convinced like they're fixed. I'm not fully convinced the offense is definitely right. And I'd like to see them go in, do it one more time, do it against a little better competition. And then, you do that. And
then use that Washington game as your kind of bye if you're not going to get the 1 seed and have an actual bye.
Exactly. Then you can kind of take it easy the last week. But I don't think that should be even a consideration this week. Like, I wouldn't consider one bit sitting guys. Now, Jalen Carter, Lane Johnson, that's a little different. That's different. But anybody else, like Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, any of these other players, I'm playing this game as if it's a game I need to win this week.
I understand that. I was talking more about the guys like Lane Johnson, like Jalen Carter, even, Nakobe Dean, who, we don't know how severe his hamstring issue was. Jordan Davis told me after the game that it's minor, but even that, like, it just depends. If you're playing in bad conditions, I do think you have to take some caution. But I agree. I don't think that you necessarily have to sit everyone, and that's not what I'm saying by any means. I guess my point is I'm not looking at this game as like a test. I just feel like week after week we paint these games like, well, they won against the Raiders and the Commanders, but it's going to be a test. Can they beat Josh Allen and the Bills? Like, this team has proven themselves again and again. I feel like they rise to the occasion. They rise to the level of talent that they're playing. Now, I do think sometimes they can stoop to the level of talent that they're playing, unfortunately, at times. But I have full confidence that this Eagles team can go into Orchard Park and walk away with a win this week.
Nice name drop there, Orchard Park.
Thank you.
That's a true.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at the game, so I know the exact location.
Well, so fun fact:
Landover, Maryland, Orchard Park.
I kept forgetting the actual name of where we were in Maryland, so I didn't have that one. I used to spend a lot of time in Buffalo because I covered professional lacrosse before I started working fully in like Philly sports.
Really? And
I would travel around, and the National Lacrosse League, the Buffalo Bandits, sell out they sell more tickets to their Buffalo Bandits professional lacrosse indoor lacrosse games than they do to Sabres games. They're like the best team in the league. So we were there year after year because they were always hosting the at least half the games in the semifinals and finals. Great sports town. Love Buffalo. It is so cold.
I was gonna ask you how many people go to these games, but if
it's like this, it's their arena, so it's the same as like the Wells Fargo Center. Okay. Sorry, Xfinity Mobile Arena.
Yeah,
my bad.
Come on, Devin. Get with the program.
Exmo.
215-592-9494 if you want to get in, and we'll throw that in as well. Not just in terms of the health of the players. Like obviously, would you play the players? Would you rest them? But also, do you think this game is important from, a perspective of how you view the team? And do you think the Eagles need to win this game to kind of prove another test? I do. Like, I am encouraged by where they're headed. I think the performances against the Raiders and the Commanders, and really even going back to the Chargers game, because aside from the Hurts turnovers, I thought generally things looked better offensively. And I think, honestly, this might be a hot take here, I think Kevin Patullo's done a really good job over the last few weeks of kind of figuring out the rhythm of this offense and making things run a little more smoothly here. But I would like to see them do it against a real team. I'd like to see them do it against a real playoff caliber team, and want to know is that important to you, or are you convinced the Eagles are back?